Hey, it's Dennis. Listen, I wanted to dive a little deeper into labor units before we continued on. In the last video, I explained that each piece of material in the electrical industry has a labor factor associated with it, which includes an installation time. And there's a lot of discussion on the web about labor units, and I just wanted you to have a little better understanding. Labor units are very flexible, so there are several or numerous entities that produce or publish databases of electrical labor units. The most popular one is NIHA, which is the National Electrical Contractors Association. Another popular one is RS-Means. And if you purchase estimating software, within that software will be a database for your labor. And labor units are adjustable. So with the NIHA labor units, they have 3 levels of installation. One would be normal, one would be difficult, and the next one would be very difficult. So labor column 1 would be the easiest, labor column 2 would be more difficult, and labor column 3 would be the most difficult. A lot of the estimating softwares have six levels. And then within that, you can also adjust them up or down by percentages. So you could, for instance, select labor column 2 plus 20%. So you could be between labor column 2 and 3. And then there's a lot of discussion on what's included in labor units, what labor they include. So I thought we'd take a quick look at that. I want to go over to the NIHA website and see what they have to say about it. We'll hit my computer here real quick, and then we'll come back and continue the discussion. Okay, so this is the NIHA website, and you can see that they're telling us here that the NIHA Manual of Labor Units, the MLU's been the estimating resource of choice for electrical contractors since 1923. So they've been publishing their database for a long time. I guess since before it was a database, it was a book. And if I scroll down here, it tells us what's included in the manual labor unit. So it says NIHA's labor units include normal material handling, drawing study, measurement and layout, material installation, and normal non-productive labor, which I assume would probably include restroom breaks, maybe safety meetings, things like that, things that you have to do throughout the normal part of your day, some paperwork or whatever that isn't associated with actual material installation. And then it says, is time for supervision included? And it says NIHA's labor units do not include any labor for supervision of any type. So the, I guess, angle that they're promoting is that supervision is a separate item that should be, have its own budget within the estimate. So some contractors do that. Most that I've worked for don't do it. It's been very rare when I've actually been handed a supervision budget. And so one point I wanted to make is that if there isn't a separate line item in the estimate for supervision, then by default supervision does get covered in the labor unit. Okay, because that time isn't free. It has to be accounted for somewhere. And if they're not creating a separate budget for it, then the time for supervision has to come out of the labor unit. And just so that you understand what I'm talking about, in our last video we talked about installing 1/2-inch EMT with fittings and supports in, I believe it was 3.6 hours. So if we just said, hey, you know, our supervision should run about 10% of our time, then we could multiply that 3.6 times 110%, should be, I think something around 3.96 hours. So what we did is we fattened up our labor to install the pipe to include supervision. So you need to know that if your company doesn't give you a separate budget for supervision, then you have to include it in your labor unit. Okay, so if you search around the web, you'll probably find maybe some message boards or other sites that'll talk more about labor units. Some of them include other things in there like cleanup and maybe a tool setup, things like that. So there's a lot of different things that could be included in a labor unit. Now, if you remember, we had a discussion earlier about a young journeyman that worked for me named Charlie that I caught smoking. And so I told Charlie that as far as I was concerned, as long as he kept beating my schedules, he could smoke anytime he wanted to. Well, by doing that, I included smoking in his labor unit. Okay? As long as Charlie could smoke and still get the material installed in the allotted time, that was fine with me. If you have a hobby of knitting and you need to knit your grandmother a scarf for Christmas and you want to include that in your labor unit on my project, that's fine with me. As long as when I come around to visit you, your material is installed in the allotted time that I give you, I don't care what you include in your labor unit. You see what I'm saying? So as far as I'm concerned, or for my purposes, there's 3 things included in a labor unit. Material handling, if it's a large project, will be a separate item. On smaller projects, you fetch your own material. Supervision is the second thing I include in my labor units, and the rest is just material installation. I don't care how long it takes you, 5% of your time or 25% of your time to set up your tool. I still want my task completed on time. So I consider all of that part of material installation. I figure that on my projects, I have adults working for me and they can manage their labor unit any way they want. They can split their time up for different, aspects of that task however they want, as long as when they're done, they've completed on time in the allotted amount of time that I give them to do the project. So you're welcome to study a little more online if you want. It's good to understand what a labor unit is. We're going to get into that a little bit more. I do have an article that I wrote and published on LinkedIn. I put the link for it right up here. So if you want to click on that, you can read that, and that'll give you a real good understanding of labor units as well. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later.